On this spot, on March 18, 1998, a storm of electromagnetically charged human muscle and brain tissue reigned over this region, collapsing rooftops and destroying automobiles. Nearly 80% of the cortical matter exhibited extreme cerebral mutations and a DMT derivative, resulting in the powerful psychoelectric charge.
They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on
Go nuts.
File 142C. March 18, 1998. Initial incident report.
On March 18, 1998, a portion of Clark Drive and the surrounding region was pelted with an aggressive downpour of electromagnetically charged biological substances composed primarily of human cortical matter and extended muscular systems. The anomalous weather was preceded by a sharp electronic hum, which seemingly originated in the upper atmosphere and was described by one witness as the sort of noise that made it feel like your fillings were twisting in your teeth. While much of the muscular tissue was relatively normal, upwards of 80% of the cortical matter was seen to have experienced
extreme cerebral mutations,
in some cases resulting in the tissues carrying a powerful electromagnetic charge. This might offer an explanation for why some of the cortical matter was seen apparently defying the laws of physics, specifically of a gravitational nature. A dozen or so vehicles were highly damaged from exposure to the charged cortical matter, with the heavy metal of the automotive carapaces becoming warped and in some cases oddly misshapen, while several car batteries experienced catastrophic failure, resulting in spillage of the contained acids, burning several civilians. Several commercial and residential dwellings were also damaged, with one home having its roof partially collapsed by what was estimated to be about 60 kilograms of pure temporal lobe tissue, which upon closer examination was revealed to be riddled with a familiar DMT derivative.
Technological benefits.
Examination and a study of the cerebrally mutated cortical matter led to the development of several new technologies, including the development of imposed cerebral waveform conditioning devices, ICWCDs, which led to the creation of the Neuroelectromagnetic Compliance Program, NECP. While both the ICWCDs and the NECP were developed deep within the laboratories of the Sublime Initiative for Abnormal Macro-Settlement Research, SIEMR, it was the Vancouver Police Department's VPD-owned Paranormal Investigation Squad, the decadently mysterious Unit 313, who wound up making use of the scientific innovations. While the moral implications were obvious, sources within the VPD suggested that those in charge of Unit 313 felt strongly that the drones' worth as crime-fighting assets far outweighed any moral issues presented by the so-called droning process. A scientific showcase was designed to highlight the alterations the NECP was capable of enforcing on unwilling participants, with one man shown on video being snatched out of a makeshift dwelling and transported to a secret laboratory where he was strapped to a metal gurney and opened up by a team of faceless doctors. Within 3 hours, he was back on the street in a full police uniform and a featureless black mask to disguise his identity, assisting local police with the violent dismantlement of temporary shelters constructed by transient citizens, one of which was in fact the same shelter at which he'd previously been residing.
Drone technology, applicational context.
The following is a transcript of an interview with Dr. Lawrence J. Goober.
Through manipulation of the electromagnetically charged cortical matter, we learned how to broadcast a signal, which rewrote the higher functions of a receptor. Keeping in mind, of course, when I say receptor, I'm talking about people we abducted from off the street to illegally experiment on. Although that did always bring its own questions. Can you truly abduct a person who doesn't have a residence? Aren't you just translocating a mobile entity? We'd argue for hours about that sort of thing, as some poor bastard had his thought process surgically removed and replaced with whatever nonsense we'd written up that morning.
Sometimes I wonder what we were trying to learn.
We found all sorts of ways to justify what we were doing, and then later learned that those justifications were being put into our minds with the same technology we'd been experimenting with. Why?
Hell, why not?
It was foolish of us to not expect it. Jones did. He saw it coming. Built himself a whole little tinfoil hat to protect himself. It worked too. Kept his brain nice and safe, right up until those security goons took him out behind the chemical sheds and cracked his cranium open with one of those regulation skull mallets they only give out to the real pretty guards. Looking back on it, sure, it seems pretty bad now. But let me tell you, the guys we experimented on, they were happier this way. They'd just go to sleep and the new thoughts would take over. They don't even know we were doing it to them. That was part of the trick. Eventually, we got roped into processing them for use in law enforcement. I think there were originally plans to use them for cheap labor, but they're not really built for that. But if you put a half dozen of them behind a uniformed cop, and they'll stomp criminals, or hippies, or whoever you tell them to, until the streets are clean. Thanks to our work, Unit 313 went from a small gang of nerdy weirdo cops to an assault squad capable of clearing out whole city blocks if need be. Of course, we couldn't do anything about that spooky, burned hair smell the drones put off. And even more unnerving was the way they'd communicate, with those high-frequency baby noises. I still think about that sound sometimes. It shows up in my dreams. But that was the trade-off. Unit 313 got the technology to build an army of thugs who were able to operate outside of the traditional police hierarchy. And in exchange, Agent 6 arranged for the release of several key Psi-IMR scientists. Their charges officially dropped. Of course, it was an uneasy truce at best.